People ask the sex questions you're too scared to say out loud. What do guys with insanely large dicks even do with those things? Is it just unusable? Last night some dude sent me a pic trying to cover a hard-on with his forearm and he failed because it was quite a bit larger than his forearm. I blocked him because I didn't ask for that, but is that even usable? At what dick-to-body ratio do you just have boner-induced POTS and pass out due to the redirected blood flow? Does that even fit anywhere? Something with a larger diameter than your mid-forearm isn't fitting in someone's mouth, I wouldn't think. Anecdotally, I've met only one person with a macro penis. He couldn't sustain an erection for long periods and would become exhausted, so it was not possible for him to be very reciprocal. He couldn't have sex because no partner was willing to even entertain trying it once they saw it, and he was terrified of hurting them too. Oral was awkward and overall unsatisfying for him because it was a whole lot of licking and not much else, although he could eventually come. It's not that it was unusable, but it was generally difficult and extremely challenging for both due to size and intermittent function of it. This was also coupled with him feeling somewhat depressed and self-conscious about it too, so those emotions and thought processes likely affected functionality also. He required more aftercare than any other man in my experience too. His load was surprisingly not macro, but a fairly normal amount. Man, I wonder how he's doing these days. He was a considerate person. I hope he's found happiness and perhaps a loving and supportive partner. I remember seeing an interview years ago with the guy who had the largest recorded penis in the US at the time. He was basically having a terrible time in every aspect of life. From what I remember, he spent most of his employed life on disability. It literally interfered with his ability to do any physical jobs, because even flaccid it hung down his pant leg almost to his knee or something wild. And he couldn't work at most of white-collar office jobs because, at best it was a total distraction to people, and at worst it made co-workers uncomfortable. And he struggled with relationships because women he dated were either intimidated of even trying to do anything sexual with him, or were with him because he was huge and they were just fetishizing him rather than treating him like a person. It was a pretty sad interview, honestly. The only person I've ever met with a macro penis said that he felt blessed to have an incredibly low sex drive. As he had the same problems, with partners being afraid of pain, and he being afraid of hurting them. I always thought the reason why he had such a low sex drive is because he associated sex with the problems caused by his big penis. Edit, he was also circumcised as a baby. And he thought that might have been part of the reason why sex was so unsatisfying to him. I think it had more to do with not being able to go all the way in, having to go extremely slow, and his overall lack of confidence from his fear of accidentally hurting his partner. Dick reduction surgery, if it existed, would do wonders for this guy. Goes to show, too big definitely exists. Yep. I wouldn't wish a macro penis on anyone. There's big, and then there's too big. Some things I didn't mention before that people may be interested in knowing too. He was circumcised as an infant. He did complain of lack of sensation throughout the shaft, but the head was still fairly sensitive. He came from a large family and was relentlessly bullied by his brothers who generally had normal-sized genitals. His balls were not huge, maybe a bit bigger than average size. Yeah, that's all I can recall at the moment. I felt for the guy, truly. Why do men seem more desperate for sex than women? I've noticed that men often seem more eager or desperate for sex than women. Is it mainly biological, like hormones and evolution, or more about social expectations and upbringing? Do studies actually support this idea, or is it more of a stereotype that gets exaggerated? I'm not trying to generalize or judge anyone, I just want to understand what might explain the difference. Hormones. But also risk and reward. Women have a high risk and it's most often than not less rewarding. Men encounter less risk with a high reward. Yes, it's easier for women to get sex, but it's harder to get good sex, and bad sex is not worth the risk. It's generally easier for women to get sex than it is for men. The social norms of our society may punish women for being promiscuous, but an average woman could probably go up to a random guy in public and ask for sex, and there's a decent chance the guy would say yes. If an average-looking guy does that to a woman, they would probably be arrested, lol. It's easy for women to have someone use them to masturbate. Bad sex for a man is much different than bad sex for a woman. If guys had the low chance of actually orgasming with a stranger and a higher chance of severe health issues or violence, they wouldn't be eager either. What nudes do women like, when sending consensually? I feel like just a dick pic is shitty, but what do you think? Like, what about full body photos or photos? I don't know. Less dick, more body. Strike a pose in heavy shadows that hide half of you. The mystery is half the sexy. Okay, but what about your cats? The more, the better. Shirtless, pants unzipped, but without showing the goods. Now if you want to get silly with it, get hard, put your dick in a sock, and stick some googly eyes on it. I guarantee it'll be the first time a guy's sent her that. They don't want just your dick. In my experience they're pretty understanding about not wanting your face in a nude photo, but they want to see as much of the whole body as possible. Dick in the picture but not just a dick. Yep. Second that. Also make sure your background isn't gross. Crusty carpet, janky toenails, or disastrous bathroom counter aren't turn-ons. Ladies, honestly, how long do men usually last in bed on average? I'm not talking about the whole process from foreplay, undressing, and everything that happens before or after sex. I mean specifically from the moment the man's penis goes in until he finishes. I'm just curious what's considered average based on real experiences, so guys can get a better idea of where they stand. I remember being in college and one of my wife's, then GF's, friends was telling a story about a guy she was with and how he didn't last long. It was only about 5 minutes. And I was like, well, that's not that bad, and she goes, well, it was like 10 to 12 thrusts. And I was like, wait a sector, 5 minutes, 300 seconds, that is like one thrust every 25 seconds. She conceded that perhaps it was less than 5 minutes. It became a running joke in the group where we would just mime having sex at a 1 thrust per 25 second rate. Hingle McCringleberry taking notes. My guy and I go multiple times in small time increments. It's enjoyable, where people are enjoying hour-long fuck sessions. I bet it's like those people that like ultra-marathons. Probably also like sex that takes around 3 to 5 business days to finish. I read that too fast and thought it said 3 to 5 birthdays to finish, and oh my god, it's so funny. I'm on antidepressants, so usually an hour. That's unfortunate. Your partner must be extremely raw after sex. Lube and change positions so he hits different spots and you can go ages without feeling too raw. I'm a 30-minute max girl even with lube and change position. I can't get on top because how my pelvis and uterus are tilted. How common is it for men to hire a sex worker? I was cheated on by a man who hired sex workers several times. How common is this? Have most men hired a sex worker at one point or another in their lives? If you're a man, have you or your buddies ever done it or considered it? My friends made me feel like I was living under a rock, thinking that this was not a common occurrence and something that most of the men I know probably had not done. ETA, whoa, the amount of men privately messaging me stating they have hired sex workers but never told anyone before now. I don't know anyone that's ever said anything about going to a sex worker. I'm 41 for reference. I did accidentally pay for a BJ once. I was 18 at a border town in Mexico during military training in AZ and thought I was buying a lap dance. Man, was I surprised. I did live in other countries where paying for sex work is legal and typical, but I've never in my entire life wanted to. I like that my partners want to be my partners. To quote my ex-boyfriend, amicable breakup, the best part about having sex with a chick is the fact that she wants to have sex with you. Exactly. Otherwise it is just expensive and inconvenient masturbation. I know one friend that has, at least admitted to having, hired a sex worker. It was because he wasn't in a relationship, didn't want to get into a relationship or go to the bars to pick up a rando for a one-night stand, but wanted some physical touch and sex. So he found a sex worker to occasionally hire. From what he said, it worked out great as he had a 100% chance of success instead of endless nights trying to find someone, and he didn't have to worry about catching feelings for a friend with benefits or a repeated one-night stand and have it turn into a relationship. As the joke goes, you're not paying a SW for sex, you're paying for them to leave at the end of the night with no strings attached. And he likely spent less overall than he would have on bar covers and drink tabs. It's likely safer too, because a SW is going to be safety conscious, as catching an STI would affect their livelihood, as compared to a drunk person at a bar just throwing caution to the wind. Cheating is cheating, whether it's with a coworker, a dating app, a rando from a bar, or a SW. It's also not anywhere near a common occurrence, at least here in a country where it's only legal in 1 or 2 places. Does it happen far more than Puritans would believe? Sure, but I wouldn't call it commonplace either. I assume there are a couple more in my social circle that have done it, but just don't tell anyone. That's still going to be in the low single-digit percentage of people I know. You just stated exactly why I think we should make sex work legal in the US. If anything, to get rid of the fuckboys from the dating apps who don't actually want a relationship and just want to hook up, lol. Same way Vegas licenses strippers, let sex workers get licensed to prove they don't have STDs and give them access to a database to report the extra dangerous individuals sex workers inevitably come across.